Let's make some baklava. Okay, I'm gonna grind up some nuts. I'm gonna grind up some walnuts and some shelled pistachios. I want to give a shout out for this little chopper. My husband got this for me when I was down here in Phoenix last time at a craft show, and it's amazing. So let me show you. There's some walnuts here first. So the blade moves up and down, so it gets it all really good. Isn't that cool? So anyway, I'm gonna chop all my nuts for the baklava and put them in a bowl, but wanted to give this little chopper a plug. This is from Pampered Chef, so, and it's small, but man, it works really, really good. So you might want to go get one. So I've made the syrup that goes into the baklava, and I didn't get a chance to film it, so I'm going to tell you. It's 2 cups of sugar, 2 cups of water, and 2 tablespoons of lemon juice that you start with. You're going to whisk that together and bring it to a boil. And once it has reached the boiling point, you're going to turn your heat off and add 1 cup of honey and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. So what I'm going to do is set this in the freezer and let it cool completely. I'm going to let it get chilled because that needs to be nice and cold when I pour that over the cooked baklava. It does a reaction where it makes it crispy, so you need that cold against the really hot. So here is the syrup. Okay, so moving on to my nut mixture. I have ground up a bag of walnuts and a bag of pistachios. The pistachio bag was 24 ounces and the walnuts were 16. So to this, I'm going to add about a cup of sugar, and then my cinnamon, and I'm going to add 3 teaspoons of cinnamon. Ooh, I'm about out. Time to get more. Okay, there we go. And just mix this up really well. I am making baklava for my craft show tomorrow down here in Phoenix. And it is delicious. This is a great little recipe. This was not my grandma Keats. It's my friend Terry's. And she has let me do another recipe by her. Thank you, Terry. Get this all mixed together. I have 2 sticks of salted butter that I've put in a saucepan, and I'm going to put it on the stove and melt it up. And when it's done, I'm going to bring it over, and I have my little pastry brush. So I'm going to use this to spread thin layers of melted butter on the Phyllo dough, and I'll explain that coming up. All right, I'm ready to assemble the baklava. So I have all my Phyllo dough out, and I just used, hold on, I'll get the box. Sorry about that, I'm back. So I used 1 whole box of Phyllo dough, and 2 sleeves come in it. So I opened both of them and rolled them out, and I covered them up with a damp paper towel, because if you don't keep it kind of moist, these Phyllo dough sheets will dry out really, really quick. So I have my pan of melted butter. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to spread some on the bottom of the pan. This is what takes the longest. It's a bit laborious, but oh my, is it good. Okay, so I've spread some butter on the bottom of the pan there, and I'm going to start layering my Phyllo dough. So we're going to go sheet by sheet. And I'm going to butter each sheet. Some people don't. Some people just put them on there and then pour the butter on. I've tried that once. I didn't like the results. So I take the time to butter each sheet. Give it a good coat. Okay, so that is buttered, and I'm going to add another sheet of phyllo dough. So for this first part, before I add the nuts, I'm going to do about 10 layers of phyllo dough. Butter each one. Okay, so I have 10 sheets of phyllo dough in my pan. Now what I'm going to do is take about 3/4 a cup of my nut mixture, about that much there, and I'm going to just sprinkle this evenly over the dough. Just take my hands and spread it out a little bit. And there's some nuts in here that are a little bit chunkier than the rest, and that's good. You'll want that to give your baklava the crunch. Makes it so good. So okay, so I've spread that in there. So I'm going to just resume with layering the phyllo dough. I cover it up with my damp paper towel so it doesn't dry out. This is very fragile, very delicate dough. So now, rather than going 10 layers, I'm only gonna go 5. And once again, I'm going to butter each one. And it does take time, but these international pastries, they're a bit of work. They are so good. Okay, so I'm going to do 5 more layers and add some more nuts. Okay, I've added another 5 layers of phyllo dough. Once again, I'm going to add about 3/4 cup of nuts. So we just do this over and over. Probably do another couple 5 layers, and then for the last one, I'll do 7 to 8 layers of phyllo dough. So just spread this out nice and even. So I'm making this for the craft show tomorrow here in Arizona. I usually make it every time I'm part of the show. And people always are like, so do you have Jewish or Middle Eastern ancestry? I said, no, I have Swedish and Irish and English. It's so funny. I just love to cook. A friend of mine gave me this recipe and I thought, you know, I love baklava and I'm gonna try it. It originated, well, there's an argument about it. It's a Greek dessert, but a lot of people say it started in Turkey and then the Greeks picked up on it. So I'm not sure, but I'll just say it's Greek and Turkish. So, okay, I'm gonna get layering again, another 5 layers there. I'm down to my last layer, so I've spread the nuts on and I have about 7 sheets of phyllo dough left. So that'll be the last layer, and I will butter the top and cut it. I'll show you how here in just a minute. I am done layering this, and just in case you're wondering, it takes about 45 minutes to an hour to assemble a pan of baklava. But like I said, it's worth it. So I have spread just a little bit of butter on top, but what I'm going to do right now, see if I can show you this. I'm going to cut it into triangles. So I'm just going to score it first before I really dig down in there. Score it into 4 sections. Ooh. Yes, this dough is very fragile and delicate, but oh my gosh, once it's done and you eat it, it is absolutely delicious. And I read too that years ago when baklava was invented, they called it the poor man's dessert. I'll tell you what, if that's the poor man's dessert, I'm wondering what the rich one was, because this is so delicious. Very decadent, very yummy. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut up the rest, and then when I'm done, I'll come back and show you exactly how I cut it. I'll be back. It's all done. So what I did, I scored it I scored it 3 times into 4s, and then I went this way for triangles. And so, you know, so there's gonna be some ends that aren't big enough to put in a container to sell. So those will be our chunks. So, and there's lots of videos online too that show you how to cut baklava. And I have a little bit of butter left. So what I'm gonna do now that it's cut is put the remainder of my butter on. Some of these pieces are a little loose. Just pour the rest of it on. You know how I say more vanilla, more vanilla? Well, with baklava, it's more butter. Any Greek or any cook that baker makes this will tell you the same. So anyway, I am just going to spread the rest of this butter around really good. The remainder of it will sink down into the cracks there. And then when I'm done, I'll come back and tell you how long to bake it. The baklava is all done, well, assembled, ready to put in the oven. I have the oven preheated at 325, so I'm going to put this in the oven for 1 hour and 20 minutes. And you'll know it's done too because it'll be a nice golden brown on the top. And in my oven, I also put a pan of water on the bottom shelf just to keep some moisture in there. This was a tip I did learn from my grandma. And when I first started making baklava, I applied that technique to this, and it makes it so good. So in the oven it goes. I'll be back when it's done. Look at that, it's done. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at that baklava. So it's just out of the oven. And what I'm gonna do now is take my syrup, pour about half of it over, because the other half I can use for a whole other batch. So what I'm gonna do is pour, can you hear that sizzling? Oh, isn't that awesome? A little bit more. So I've been chilling the syrup for a while now, and I'm just gonna let this sit and set up real good. And sorry, there's a glare there. Gonna let it set up real good, and when it's cool, I'm going to divide it up and, ooh, that light. And I'm gonna put it in little clamshells for my show tomorrow. So I'll be back in a bit. Okay, so I have dished up the baklava and put them in separate little clamshells like this. So what I'm gonna do now, I've taken, about half a cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips, and I'm going to spread it over the top of the baklava. Just snip off a little edge of the plastic bag and just spread it over. You can see that. Spread it over the top, just give it a nice little decoration. And then I'm going to take some of the pistachios and walnuts and just sprinkle that on. So there is the baklava. Yummy, yummy. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial today of making baklava, and I hope you go make you some. It's a little bit of work, but it's so good and so worth it. So Anyway, have a good day, everybody. A great weekend. I love you all. Mwah. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye. Oh, one more thing. When you get the pan out and you're dishing out the baklava, make sure it's cut up. Make sure it's sliced really well, because if it's not, it'll be hard to get out of the pan. So anyway, bye-bye.